Rick Arlow. I'm the founder and CEO of Complion. We are the leading site deregulatory EISF provider. And we're going to be talking about overcoming site regulatory issues today with Len Rosenberg of LLS for the GCP conference. Very excited to have this opportunity to connect with you. Len, do you want to provide a quick overview here from your background?
Sure. So Len Rosenberg, I head up clinical operations at BeatAML LLS, and BeatAML stands for Beat AML, which is a frontline blood cancer that we're looking to treat. It's a precision-based master trial that's been up and running for 4+ years. We are actually starting up a few other master trials, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But the concept behind it is that we use precision medicine and a frontline screening protocol to target best-in-class treatments to patients so they have their best chance of an outcome. And as the leader as a nonprofit curing blood cancers with our goal, that's been our focus over the years, and our ability to introduce novel technologies along the way. So not only are we including best-in-class treatments or investigational pipeline treatments, but we need to marry that with the best operational opportunities for the program as well, hence my collaboration with Complion. So back to you, Rick.
Perfect. Thank you, Len. Let's jump in and get started here. So to kick it off, really want to start by providing an overview of the problem of the pain here that similar sponsors and CROs are facing. At a high level, there's a set of documentation required that the sites need to manage and maintain from a regulatory or ISF perspective that's necessary to be reviewed by the sponsor. And so many groups here today, whether it's in activation or ongoing study execution, capturing, accessing this information can really be a challenge, right? Many times this information can be living in multiple places, emails and portals, back and forth. It's getting lost. It's hard to know if you have the right version and information. A lot of queries if the information is not being done correctly the first time through from the site, or you can't find it, you don't know what it is, right? And of course, turnover can continue to be a challenge as well too here. And so really this is really the challenge that we're going to be talking about today. This problem to ensure that the site regulatory ISF information is reviewed and accurate. Anything else here, Len, that you would want to share as well from your background and experience?
Well, I think it's compounded by the fact that we're running master trials, which is a higher level order, if you will, than running single, not single center, but kind of single therapeutic. And so when you think about running multiple sub-studies, and then having to roll up that information into kind of the master trial view at the same centers with as much as 10 different pharma partners at once, that's where the complexity of the regulatory processing, I'll call it, comes into play. And we'll talk about that a little further into the presentation.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And obviously today, many times sponsors, CROs may be providing this information, physical binders, shipping it out, or many times trying to get access to that, whether it's through excessive amounts of scanning or physical FaceTime or video sharing, right, to be able to access what you need in a more remote environment. And so to move forward, really what does this look like here specifically? Well, there's really 3 key aspects, as Len mentioned, especially in master trials, but in general, there's multiple versions of key documents that need to exist, whether it's protocols, manuals, ICF, IBs, et cetera, to ensure that those are effective, approved. The site and the staff themselves are trained and credentialed on that information. And then ultimately, there's a process that is being reviewed and ensured that everything is accurate and the site has the right staff following the protocol effectively, right? And as I mentioned, a lot of the challenges that exist here is that level of confusion. What is it? Do we know what needs to be done? Are we getting the wrong version? Are we ensuring that everything can be completed today? And obviously this process can be challenging from a sponsor perspective in terms of being able to get insight into what's actually happening today. And so I think one of the key aspects, I think this is a lot of what people, from a sponsor CRO perspective are regularly running into. Really, I think the opportunity to step back is that this isn't just a collection problem to get access to these documents, but there's real challenges that can happen in terms of study delays and additional costs when the information is incorrect, when the sites are running off of the wrong versions of documents, when staff are not appropriately trained and credentialed to really be running on this study, right? And especially within the master trial context, right? It's even more challenging as sites can be running any number of additional protocols to be able to enable them to start effectively and ensure, really that these issues aren't coming up throughout the study as well, right? So Len, any other additional feedback that you would share in terms of some of the big challenges that really created the need to look for a solution to this problem?
Right. So a couple of things. One is our goal from the beginning was to minimize on-site presence. And we did that with kind of remote monitoring and early versions of electronic source and a bunch of other things which are not germane to today. But the concept behind it is we want to automate the process and we don't want to spend our time or our CRA's time on site. And we need to be notified of what's going on with the startup process. And we want it in our control. And the more you can put it in our control and less on, I'll call it the CRO, the better off we're going to be. And we can look at the things that are most important to us. The other thing is that to take advantage of efficiencies, in master trials, you actually do use the same site. You just give them multiple sub-study opportunities for the patients where there's some matching algorithm centrally based on the frontline diagnosis. And so why would you not want to replicate all of the startup regulatory information, which cuts across all the sub-studies except for obviously the protocol and maybe some changes to 1570. The concept is all of the startup information and designated, focus to the trial master files and where they land and how they land are all available to you, and you should do it once, right? And then you should let the automation carry it through, both within a study and then across the program. So that's why we decided that it is truly time to work with a company like Complion that had figured it out. And Rick, I'll turn it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Len. And so, I think another way to look at this, I wanted to share, a quote here from a regulatory affairs supervisor at a larger Texas Children's Hospital here, which just did a similar type of presentation together recently. And again, looking at the opportunity, right, not just to collect documents to have what you need, especially in a remote world, but the opportunity to really speed through the activation process and through driving improved accuracy of the training of the requirements that need to exist, as well as the time to get to the monitor prep and review. And I think really in an interesting way, help to really drive this first time approval, right? Are there opportunities so that the CRA doesn't have to issue, right, the queries that exist because the information is being done correctly by providing the site with what they need to do the first time through. And so I thought this would be a good quote to help share again, talking about what opportunities here can exist, and then really being able to lay that out within several key goals that we've seen by being able to use the site regulatory software to drive faster activation with the sites, provide real oversight into the things that matter, and boost the CRA productivity. And so really, as we've seen it within these three categories, are the opportunities to drive value here, right, in addition and separate from just being able to collect and get these documents from the site. If you can help identify what needs to be done correctly, then the site can complete that more readily, have a higher first-time level of approval rate, and be faster to create and close the queries since both parties know exactly what needs to be done. From an oversight perspective, being able to reduce the costs that may come in from delays or unanticipated costs, whether that's delayed closeout or additional audit or inspection costs or third-party auditors that might go into the process by getting insight into what matters, seeing that sooner, eliminating the issues before they can happen, and also not requiring additional project management burden on the CRAs or CTAs to provide that information. And then further, a big part of the CRA and CTA time is being able to do this level of review. And by reducing the number of queries that they can get, reducing the amount of visit and site communication, there's an opportunity to really boost their productivity to see more sites more effectively. And so I think these are really some of the bigger opportunities that we've seen with this, that it can exist today for other similar groups. And Len, I don't know if there's anything else here that you would share as well from your perspective.
Yeah, I think you hit it out of the park in reality. It's control for me, and if you put other sponsors in this seat, they want to know, and they don't want to be dependent on a third party. Yes, third party software is one thing, but to go to the project team, and then the project team has to go to their startup group, and the startup group has to contact the central IRB, and then all this stuff when you have a simple question that you want answered, or you want to know what the status is of your TMF, and you want to be able to have a quick look at this information. All of this needs to be built into what we call a dashboard. Right, and we've customized our dashboard for master trials. And while yes, every point solution has their own dashboards, and you can go in and just spend all the time in the world you want looking at Rick's dashboard and Complion, our goal is to pull out the key information so that we can marry it up with all the other operational summary points that we need to run our program. And this is a perfect way to dig deep if we want to, or to go light with data feeds that are integrated and let us run our program and kind of let everyone do what they're supposed to do in executing the program. Correct?
Perfect. Thank you. So how is this achieved, right? So really three key aspects that we've seen, helping you to set up your way, right? As Len mentioned for LLS, being able to take control of this process instead of what maybe the individual CRA or site, what their preference may be. And so by setting up your way, you can very clearly identify what's needed, what's still needed for that site, not just, and giving them the key info, right, that they need to have as well too, to ensure that they can do that correctly the first time through. And being able to identify what needs review, very specifically queuing up for the CRA, what actually needs to be reviewed. Maybe every email doesn't actually need to be specifically putting eyes on that to review, but what are the key documents that actually require review, creating a standard process for that so that when there are issues, they can very clearly identify that and queue that up for the site to complete immediately. And in real time, everyone can see where those are, as well as prioritize that. What are the biggest issues that you might want to be able to see, and ultimately take those biggest issues around, primarily around, do we have the right staff credential, be doing the right things at the site on the right version, and other key, important high priority queries that you can see to get oversight into the things that can actually be impacting study delays and costs. To see that in advance and ensure that you're going to be able to take proactive measures to address those here before they're larger problems, right? And so I think to step back, instead of identifying a new way to shove documents, new tools to move them around, really a digital solution for the specific site regulatory needs that are important both in activation as well as in ongoing study execution. Because otherwise there's just inevitable opportunity for error and limited ways to get that oversight that you need to ensure really fast startup and ongoing appropriate study execution. Not necessarily being dependent on the expertise, the training, of the individual CRAs, project teams, or site staff to be able to do so, and a single place where things don't get lost, and you can see that full history, right? Now, another key aspect, what we've learned, and where we typically get the next set of questions as well, how do we make the sites do this? how do we force them to do it here our way? And I think the key aspect that we've really learned is the sites don't need to do anything differently, right? Success isn't dependent on getting the site to use this as their electronic regulatory binder, but rather being able to ensure, right, the key things that you have to provide you with that key access today, right? And so what we've seen is, approximately, depending on the different types of sites and what's out there, many of them are implementing their own solutions. Still a vast majority of sites today, maybe 80 to 90% in general, and maybe it's a little bit different at different size organizations as well here too. This can be a free option that they can help turn on, that you can improve your relationship with that site by providing them with some value-add tools. Otherwise, you can build on top of what they've already put in place, whether it's with a commercial vendor, or even in terms of their internal shared drives, network drives to help store these documents electronically. And so I think that's a key aspect to really be able to ensure success. This bring your own, solution, if you have one in place, will really help you work effectively with the sites and set the right expectations. And so, Len, anything else here that you would share based on your experiences that other sponsors, CROs might be in this position, trying to understand how a solution could work in the way that actually works with their sites?
Yeah, Rick, it really comes down to letting the sites continue with their workflows related to study startup and offer this up as a flexible, customizable, integratable solution. And for the ones that are more experienced, it's going to be a drag and drop into our architecture, if you will, and then movement into the TMF. The ones that are still a little behind the times and don't have these automated environments, then you give them this opportunity to use this software to make it easier on them, especially when you're in trials that repeat themselves. A lot of the same, personnel and startup documentation, it makes it really easy. So I think I've said it a number of different ways. And what we found is that Rick's solution really has the architecture built in to look at those relationships between the studies, the programs, the documents, the naming conventions, and everything else. And that was kind of purpose built for us. So we didn't have to have them go back and retool their system. We just had to make sure that their system worked within our environment where the sites had different levels of proficiency for their start.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And so the specific value add here that we've seen with sites, obviously to help them eliminate the additional paper they may need to keep, but also providing an opportunity for them to also get to audit readiness faster by providing some additional tools. They would want to use them in terms of training, delegation, as well as other key aspects to help them provide access, reuse across their studies, as well as accommodate for other key types of documents in a very controlled way. Len, as you mentioned here as well too, being able to work across the ecosystem to plug in this site regulatory EISF tool is one piece of the puzzle, right? And so really what we've seen are two primary opportunities where we've been able to work with your team here and others to help boost oversight in other systems, where again, you're seeing that key dashboard information. And what we can help provide that is that CRA reviewed level of the key site regulatory metrics that could be helpful, as well as to further help reduce the cost of monitoring and boost the TMF completeness by providing that export ready out of the system, just the complete, the classified information already that's readily available to reduce the time the CRA CTA may need to spend in that process, and providing multiple options to make that something easy out of the box to help plug in more effectively and quickly. I don't know if there's any other specific aspects here that you would share around working across that ecosystem here specifically.
No, I think we can probably move on with the presentation because we're kind of saying a few, at least my contributions are kind of point to this about setting it up your way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Right, and that is what we were looking for from the outset. So first, we have to check all these boxes on, the technical capabilities, the oncology experience, but the purpose-built environment that would allow the architecture to be used in master trials and have standardized ways of doing the naming conventions and the metadata associated with the information and the flexibility to get it into your standard or customized TMS, all that stuff. If it's not built into the solution from the outset, you got to kind of figure it out as you go and reversion or rebuild the architecture just wasn't a good starting point for us. But yet having the ability for the sites to do everything from bring your own eRed binder to use, our system. As I mentioned earlier, when we started out our master trials, we weren't using this. We're actually deploying this in our new master trial called Stop MDS. We'll not retrofit, but we'll use it in our ongoing BeatAML master trial. And there are other ones that are going on as well. So it can be done in very complex, institutionally run, master trials, or you can certainly roll it up in SMOs and one-off sites. And it really gives you tremendous flexibility, but you don't have to think about how it plugs in and works. That's one of the keys for us, right? It's not like we have to figure it out with you. We just have to make sure that the workflows using the architecture that was already built could work with us and work with the sites. And I've seen it. I've been on these early calls with sites because we have early moving sites that work with us. And they really love the new technology solutions that we bring, especially when they can go ahead and demonstrate it. It's intuitive, right? And everyone says, well, we need training, we need testing, we need this, that. No, if it's a simplified approach and you can figure it out like most people do when they go to a website, it really makes the adoption that much easier. And that's what we're finding out. And then the end users on our side, which gives us the control over what is collected, really helps us. And like I said, we can put it into your dashboard and do as much drill down as we want. But at the same time, we can integrate it into higher level dashboards just to get a sense of where we are. So that flexibility is also important. And the fact that we can keep using it over and over again once we've done, the baseline setup really makes it easier going forward. So I'll turn it back to you, but thanks for allowing me to kind of give you or share, our experiences so far. It's early, but it's good. And, that's the method.
Perfect. Thank you, Len.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in a nutshell, the ability to bring those types of best practices, but also accommodate for what those needs are. And there is an opportunity to set up your standard way and help provide that across all the different, types of trials and sites that you work with, right? And so really just one quick overview from a Complion standpoint. This is exactly what we do. We are highly focused on the site regulatory EISF space. And are focused on really solving these underlying problems, innovating and partnering with our clients to help achieve those goals, and driving